Hi, I'm John DeDakis, and I am Kim Sorrelle's guest on her podcast, The Kim Sorrelle Show. I'm an author, a manuscript editor, former editor on CNN's The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, and I am looking forward to connecting with you because connection is what we talk about.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You are going to be so happy you are here. I'm Kim Sorrelle. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I get to do a lot of fun things in life. Like I just spoke at the UN a couple weeks ago. That was so fun. But the best thing, my most favorite thing I like to do is meet people. And I get to meet some of the coolest people that walk the face of this earth. Today, my guest is no exception to that. He's amazing. When I was looking into John's background, I was blown away. I don't know that there's a job that this man has not had. He is funny, for one thing. I'm excited because he's funny. I like funny people. But he's been White House correspondent. He's interviewed presidents. He's been editor, chief writer, I don't know, all kinds of different things. I'm sure you've seen his work. We've probably all seen his work throughout the years and just not known that it was him. And he's got some books out that are incredible. He's an incredible author. And he's like married and stuff too. Like he has a life beyond all the things and tear gas in his background. I don't know. But anyway, I know you're going to love him as much as I do. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Kim. What a buildup. I don't know. You put a lot of pressure on me here.
Yeah, I was hoping to. Oh, yeah.
It worked. It worked.
Yeah. Well, John, I'm so excited to dive in, but I want people, first of all, to know you. So I want you to tell us about 8-year-old John.
8-year-old John. Oh man, 8-year-old John was living in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is right along the Mississippi River. Eight-year-old John was a scaredy cat, skinny, scrawny kid, picked on by, the neighborhood bullies who called me skinny bones and all that. And so, but that's life. We all have, issues growing up. And didn't really know what I wanted to do for sure. My dad was a lawyer, and so the early inklings of a path started young at that age. And so I was going to be a lawyer, going to go into practice with my dad, and then I was going to use the law as a stepping stone to get into politics. I grew up, so we're moving forward. Went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Um, I won't go into a lot of detail unless you want to follow up. The bottom line is that there was a lot of fear in my life growing up. And over time, we face a lot of challenges, and how we face them determines if we're going to be courageous or cowardly. And I've had instances of being both. But the long and the short of it is that, I faced the draft in the Vietnam War era, um, went into journalism, had a 45-year career in journalism, started writing novels in the middle of that. Let's see, covered the White House when Reagan was president, was at CNN for 25 years, the last seven as one of Wolf Blitzer's editors. And then I left CNN in 2013 and basically glided into a new entrepreneurial career path as a manuscript editor, a writing coach, a novelist, a writing teacher, and a motivational speaker. So, the 8-year-old kid has come a long way.
Yeah, I guess so. The 8-year-old kid has come a long way. Well, and you mentioned you were scrawny and got bullied, it sounds like, whatever. And um, it kind of comes back to, I'm curious your take on this, but sort of like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's true of this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, life is full of choices. And every instance, every challenge that it presents itself, you have an opportunity to choose how you're going to respond. And I think that some of our responses maybe aren't wise or weren't the best. Other times we can learn from our mistakes and get stronger. But I think you're absolutely right. The the I wish that life was set so that we could have it all figured out right away and then could just fly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way. It's like it's one step at a time and you learn and grow as you go.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and then things happen in life that these curveballs come in that are unexpected. I cannot imagine being faced with the draft. I graduated from high school in 1979.
Okay.
So the 70s were my jam. 70s music is still my favorite. Uh,
The music was
I was,
still decent that back then.
yeah,
It
yeah, we
was
had
best
good
in the late
music.
60s, but I'll allow it.
Okay, whatever, whatever. And we were talking before we went on air that you worked on Mackinac Island. People, if you have not been to Mackinac Island, it's one of my favorite places in the entire world. My whole family, we love Mackinac. I have a son actually who just bought land on Mackinac Island because
Oh,
they'd like to
nice.
have a house there someday. And you worked there and probably ate some fudge and
Oh
smelled
my God. I don't
forest
like the thing
dropping.
is I don't like fudge, but the locals and the people of the wait staff and stuff, the all the tourists are nicknamed fudgies because there's so many fudge stops, fudge shops that everybody buys fudge when they're on the island, and so the tourists get that reputation and nickname of being fudgies.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. It's so funny.
you know.
Yeah, is a small airport, so you can fly in a small plane, mostly private planes that come in there. But otherwise, you take a boat over, a ferry over, no cars on the island.
No cars on the island. Either you take a bicycle, you walk, or you take a carriage ride. And, there was one carriage driver that told me people give up their critical thinking skills when they're on the vacation. One of the carriage drivers told me that a person and his wife came up to him and asked, how far around is the island? And the carriage driver said it's 9 miles in circumference. And the guy looks at his wife and says, honey, let's just go halfway and come back.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Yes, yeah, I think you do. You lose your mind a little bit when you're you leave it at home,
There, yeah, pretty
back
much.
at your suitcase. Yeah, yeah. But it is such a great place. It had to be a fun place to work for a summer, I would think.
Oh man, it was wonderful. And I've been back with my family since, and I'd love to go back again. It's been too long.
Yeah, that's how I feel every time that I go and then have not gone, that it's been too long.
Yep.
It's one of those places you can just go back and back and
It's
back.
magical. It's magical.
It is. It really is. It's a special place. So yes, so we both recommend Mackinac Island, your next vacation. Mackinac Island
Yes.
would
In
be,
the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
yes, yeah, kind of in between the lower and the upper. Yes, right there. Did you know, by the way? So Michigan, it's nice, there's an Upper Peninsula. There's a lot of people that live in the United States that have no idea that it's not just the mitten, but we've got the Upper Peninsula.
Right?
And you know what the people in the Upper Peninsula, what they call the Lower Peninsula people?
I don't know.
Trolls, because we live under the bridge.
That's right. The Mackinac Bridge. That's
The
right.
Mackinac Bridge. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, anyways, not just a little bit of trivia, I guess.
Nice.
But yeah, so you've lived quite a life though, and there are some things that get thrown in life. Like I don't know that anybody goes through with an unbumpy road
Right.
or things that happen that are traumatizing, like the Vietnam War. Like I was saying, I graduated in '79. I remember in junior high having a bracelet from a POW, and so we all had these bracelets with somebody's name on it, and you were just waiting for them to come back and their name to be in the paper, and all the riots that were going on, all the things that were going on, and it made me very, very, very afraid of there being a war when, if I had kids, that they someday that they could be facing a draft. As it
Right.
turned out, there was a war, and there was no draft, but I had two sons go in the service, and
Mm,
I, kind of let them go kicking and screaming because of Vietnam.
right.
And it was a tough time. That was a tough time.
It was very tough. It was especially tough because, I mean, my parents were Nixon Republicans. I grew up, not really having a strong opinion about the war. My dad was a World War II vet. And so when I went away to school, I encountered an entirely new way of looking at things. And when I would go to class, I was bombarded from both the left and the right to take a position. And there was something in me that just felt that I was being spun. From whichever side, I felt they were leaving something out that would undermine, their argument. And, when I would be in the bull sessions in the dorms, I'd argue the right wing line of my Nixon Republican parents. And when I was at home at Thanksgiving, I'd argue the left wing line I was hearing at school. And when I was alone, I was confused. And so I joined a campus radio station just to sit on the perch to find out what the facts were. Got tear gassed covering an anti-war riot after Kent State in 1970. My parents heard their little boy getting tear gassed and encouraged me to switch schools, which I did. I was fine with that. But they had a draft, and if you had a number below 150, chances are you were going to get drafted. My number was 14. Not
Wow.
good, not good, but I had a student deferment. The problem is, though, I also had a grade point average of 1.95. So when I transferred schools, this was right at the time when Playboy magazine voted UW-Madison the number one party school in the country. And I saw myself as one of the chief part. I wasn't successful as one of the chief partiers, but I did so well that I, had such a lousy grade point. So I was faced with the draft. And by this time, I decided I was against the war, but it was a little late to go, oh, by the way, I'm, meaning to tell you about this burning moral objection I've got. So I was stuck. So my dad was on the draft board. So I went to my dad and I said, hey, Dad. And he said, and this is a quote, he said, hell no, I'm not going to get you out of this. Talk to a recruiter and find out what your options are. And when I did, I discovered there was something called military journalism. Who knew? So I enlisted to avoid the draft. That gave me more control over what I'd do. But I ended up getting orders to Vietnam anyway. But plot twist, my orders were changed at the last minute to Germany, where I spent 2.5 years at the headquarters of the American Forces Radio and Television Network in Frankfurt, Germany, doing interviews for a special events radio unit. And the first interview I was assigned to do was with this guy named Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I know. Maybe you've heard of him. And I mean, that was a mentoring moment because my boss could have done the interview in his sleep, and he trusted this kid not to screw it up. And that's when I really found my career path, what I was good at and what I loved. So when I got out of the army, I got my degree in journalism and stayed in broadcast journalism for 45 years.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. You never know what little twists and turns are going to happen in life that put you in
You
a
never
whole
know.
different direction than
You
you
never
think
know.
is going to happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. And then there you were. And here you are.
And here I am.
Yes.
I survived.
Yeah. And so that had to be scary though, to think I'm going to Vietnam. I just honestly, the way the news was, the way everything was at the time, I went to bed in fear
It
often.
was awful because there were 500,000 US troops stationed over there at the time, and 200 kids a week were being killed over there. Kids 18, 19, 20, my age. And it was a tremendously unpopular war, primarily because a lot of students, a lot of young people were of draft age, and many people, resisted. And we don't want to get political necessarily, although the Vietnam War is history now. And we now know through the Pentagon Papers that for decades, the US government was lying to the US people about the war's winnability. They didn't want to lose face, so it was okay to just draft more people and throw them into the meat grinder. It was not a great time in this country.
No, no, for sure not, and not and a definite scar on leadership at the time.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
because mamas losing their boys, yeah, it's just not good, not good at
Right,
all.
exactly. And yet, World War II, that was an entirely different situation. I mean, that's what's great about this country. It's resilient. We have the opportunity so far to try to work through our differences and to forge a way forward. We make mistakes. It's not a perfect country, But what do they say? Democracy is the worst form of government except for the all the others that have been tried.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's hard to know. And it's hard to know on the news these days. You worked for CNN for a lot of years, and
Right.
people will argue that CNN has a slant, Fox News has a slant,
Yep.
everybody has a slant because it's 24-hour news. It's not what it used to be. It wasn't just an hour, at 6 o'clock at night or whatever it
Right.
used to be.
Right.
Now
Yep.
you got to find 24 hours worth of news.
Right.
Cannot be an easy thing.
No, I mean, but fortunately, there are enough people involved that it can be done. It's interesting because when CNN started, it was the first 24-hour network news presentation. And they never knew for sure if they'd be able to fill the time. And so they always had a backup newscast just in case, they had to throw something on the air. They never did. They never had to because the flow of information is it's like a fire hydrant, and so it's if anything, what makes it a challenge is choosing what's most important and how to cover it. Now, journalism has changed tremendously since CNN started in 1980. It's controversial. It's got problems, but there we are at a point now where there is no you can find out what you need to know on the internet or at reputable news organizations, but you're also subject to a lot of misinformation as well. So a news consumer really needs to be discerning.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's interesting because there are people that are huge news consumers,
Right.
and it kind of can take over your life.
Oh, it can.
Because
Oh, absolutely.
because it's like we said, 24 hours, so you can turn it on anytime you want, leave it on for as long as you want.
Yeah, and there's a lot of the way it's crafted, in many cases it's infotainment. So part of it is not so much to be informative, but to be entertaining, and so a lot of the news structures or constructs are not so much designed to generate light as they are heat. And so that's something you need to be aware of too, because it's so easy to get stirred up. And you need to kind of take a step back and go, is this really necessary? Do I need to really go there? Now, that's not to say that there aren't things going on that are worth paying attention to that are frustrating and annoying and enraging. But you need to be discerning there and kind of pick and choose your battles, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I'd be interested on your take on this. So I'm an optimist, and my husband was a pessimist. My husband passed away several years ago, but he was a
Oh.
pessimist. He would
Mm.
say that he was a realist and that I live in La La Land. But then I would say, well, I like it here. I like
Yeah.
so I'm staying here. This
Well,
is
and
like,
I'm with you. I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist, but for no apparent reason.
yes, yeah. There you go. And so I believe that there's not a bad side, that there's differing opinions, but nobody's against us. It's not like there's a party that's going, we want to destroy this country. We're taking it down, while the
Yeah,
other party's going, we are the best people ever. And all we want is greatness for the country. I
right.
think everybody wants greatness for the country. They want winning. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to succeed and do well and see people do well.
Yeah. I think you're making a really important point, and I agree with you. It's so easy to demonize the other side, and both sides do it. And I think that there's more hope and more reason for being an optimist if we can, as you've done, been able to identify that, the ultimate motives, whether you agree with them or not, are altruistic. We may disagree about how to go about doing it, but I think at our core, we really do care about the success and vibrancy and success of the country. It's just that, there are ways that you can do it, and there are ways that might hamper it, and then it's a question of who benefits, who loses, all those kinds of things.
Right. And sometimes it seems like it's keeping the argument going just for sake of argument. And
Yeah.
it's like, let's get
Yep.
together on this. And the other thing is that You see it separate families. Here, before we go on the air, I say, we're not talking about politics
Oh, I know.
because, and then here I'm talking about politics.
Well, you can't help it,
Like,
but you can't
yeah,
help but talk about it, but you don't need to be partisan about it. I mean, there's plenty of partisan politics going on, but at the same time, it's an important topic to be aware of. I think a lot of people are tuning out for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. We're just fed up. There's this so much toxicity in our political discourse. And a lot of people are just fed up with it and are tuning out. And I understand that, but I think that's a dangerous thing to do because, sometimes people are counting on you to be tuned out and apathetic, and then all kinds of mischief can happen. So I think we need to be engaged, but and I don't think we're going to be able to find common ground politically for a while, but I think we can find common human ground,
mm,
in terms of, our just being able to see the other person as a human being and try to meet them on that level, as opposed to try to find what the differences are, and highlight those.
yeah, very well said. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think we get things mixed up sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And we look at somebody and we put a label on them and
Yep.
we make assumptions because of the label that we put on.
Oh man.
People are not labels. We're
No, you
not
are
labels,
so right.
right?
And
Yeah.
and one thing that I teach a class in interviewing and listening. And one of the things that I think we really need to be able to do is to try to understand the other person. Not pick a fight, not win the argument, but try to really understand why they feel the way they do and how they came to that conclusion. You may not change their mind, but I think you'll come away with a better understanding of what's motivating that person. Because when you're listening, you're learning.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That is so true. Because every day we live leads us to today. So
Yeah.
the experiences we've had leading us to now, they shape our beliefs, they shape how we see the world. And if you don't know what's in somebody's past, it's awfully hard to know why they feel today, how they feel, why they feel, what they feel about whatever they feel.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with you. And you said an important word, and that's now. That's the only moment we can control. We spend most of our time regretting the past and fearing the future, and we're no good in the moment.
Yes, we lose the moment. We lose the moment. It's so interesting you'd say that because I did this thing, I dedicated a year to figuring out the true meaning of love, which, oh yeah, it was a big project. I was in Haiti most of the time. It was this eat, pray, love,
Wow.
sort of get chased by motorcycle gangs and sleep outside
Wow.
with tarantulas kind of a year. But the things that I found out just rocked my world, changed my life. The way we're taught love is so different than what love
Is that the book
really
in
is.
the background that I see? Love is?
It is actually love is there it is, and one of the things about love is listening. I took this 2,000-year-old poem, "Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, etc." I took one word or phrase a month. So the
Wow.
very first month was love is patient, and
Oh
what
man.
I learned is that love that is patient, different than patience, different than not honking your horn when you're stuck in traffic, right? That's patience.
Yeah.
But love that is patience really listens. Love that is patient is fully engaged 100% in the moment with whoever you're with, not thinking about who needs to get to a soccer game later, what you're going to be making for dinner, a meeting that you have tomorrow, none of that, but 100% right here in the moment. That is love.
Yeah. Oh,
Other
absolutely.
things are not. Yeah.
How
So,
did you come to these conclusions?
oh my gosh. Oh, the stories I'll tell you, like, it took me all month, every month, to figure out what it meant. I don't know if I'm thick-headed. I don't know what it is, but it's like I'd get hit over the head with something. I'd go, now I get it. Now I finally get it. And so I was working in Haiti. It was after the earthquake that killed 200,000 people.
It's
And
amazing.
so it was an interesting time to be in Haiti and working in Haiti, and
Why were you there?
because an earthquake killed 200,000 people.
But
So
why
I was
why
there
would why would you go there for that reason?
to help, to do whatever I could. I worked on water projects. I worked with a lot of different organizations. I run an organization. I run a nonprofit organization. So I was there working with partners and
Mm.
figuring stuff out and figuring out how to help the best way we
Wow.
could. So
Wow.
yeah, but so anyway, but listening is it's something I had to practice. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
John, I stunk at it. I was terrible. Like
Yeah.
I thought I could think of all those things and listen at the same time, and I can't. But when I honed in, when I practiced and practiced and practiced and learned how to listen, I hear things I never would have heard before.
Hmm.
And it puts you in a whole different place.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you also know when somebody's listening to you, which is special. Like
Right.
for somebody to give you their time, that's a gift. And
Yeah.
so, you know, get
And
give
it doesn't cost anything.
no, it doesn't cost anything. But yeah, so I love what you said. Yes,
Thank you.
listen to the people with whatever label you put on them. That's just a club they belong to. That's not who they are.
Right.
You know, we're all people are people all over the world. And
Yeah. We're very complex.
yes, yes, yeah. And individual and special and should be allowed to be whoever we believe we're created to be.
Right.
And leave it at that. Just love people. That's all we have to do. It's your only job. Just love everybody.
It's a full
Right.
time. Yeah. It's a full time
Full-time.
job.
It is a full-time job. Yeah. So interesting because we do have unfortunately families that separate over politics and um I don't know, mashed potatoes end up on the wall at Thanksgiving or whatever happens. And it's like, oh, God, life is too short. You know,
Yeah.
it's too short.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I think sometimes it takes going through something that shows you how short life is
Yeah.
that you go, man, that's a wake up call. That's
Yes.
something. And you've been through some things in your life.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I learned, you mentioned life being, short. When I was 9 years old, you asked me to go back to 8. At 9, I was in on a train between Chicago and my hometown in La Crosse. It was the middle of the night. I was in the dome car at the very front so I could see the tracks ahead. And we were speeding through northern Illinois in the middle of the night, and out of nowhere, this car comes, crosses in front of us. We hit them. All this debris comes down on the dome. We killed everybody in the car, and one of the kids who was one of the people killed in the car was my age.
Oh,
So I'm 9 years old, and suddenly am aware of how quickly life can get snuffed out, and that actually became the very first impetus for the first novel that I wrote because I was just trying to get published, trying to find what my story was. And I wrote about that experience and remembered 40 years earlier a car train collision news story that I'd heard about a baby who survived. And I remember thinking, what would it be like if that kid grew up and wanted to find out more about her past? And so that terrible experience led to the very first novel that I wrote.
wow. What a thing to witness as a 9-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But how great that you were able to serve the world, really. I mean, you serve the world with your books, and that you were able to do that, that you were able to use that experience and put it in a book. That's amazing. That's really amazing. And
Thank you.
at 9 years old, gosh,
Well, yeah,
you know, they say, I think it's like 10 years old is like the year that you start to understand life and death. And so 9, you're right on the cusp. You're right there. That
right there. Yeah, and and that, I mean, as you say, we don't get to choose what, gets thrown at us. It's a matter of how we respond. And and I think responses take time. It takes time to process things and to move forward and to kind of figure things out. And as I've said, life is it's a process. We're figuring it out as we go. It'd be nice if we knew at the beginning how to, what it all meant. But I think we're I think for some reason it's set up so that it's a discovery process.
yeah, yeah, so true. Well, and you've experienced some grief in your life, some pretty darn heavy grief that you hope nobody ever has to go through. And you lost your sister. Uh,
Right.
how
My
old was she?
my sister was 38 when she took her life in 1980, and I was on the scene that day, and that also shows its way into the first chapter of the first book I wrote. It's just you write what you know, and it was ripped from reality. And so writing basically for me became a catharsis, a way to work through things like that.
Yeah, I agree. It is very therapeutic to write. I find
Yeah.
the same thing. So suicide is so difficult.
Yeah.
It's my mom passed away that way, and
Oh man.
it's the worst way to lose somebody.
How old were you at the time?
I was 29.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
and my kids were little, and she was such a great grandma, I mean,
Yeah.
just all the stuff that you deal with. But it's a whole different way of losing somebody than
Yeah.
a car crash. Like honestly, it was 1990,
Mm,
so a few years ago, and things are changing a little, but there's still a stigma attached to it, right?
right.
And we didn't know what to tell people.
Right.
We
Right.
didn't know what to say.
Oh,
Did you face the same thing?
yeah. The official obituary says died suddenly. You
Right,
know,
right.
I think, and in journalism, generally speaking, the standard was you don't report it as a suicide for fear of giving other people permission to do the same thing. I
Mm,
think that it's changed now. Sometimes families are okay saying that that's what the cause of death is. So, the way journalism has evolved, it's become more acceptable to be honest about what the reasons are. But it's a stigma. It's definitely a stigma.
yeah,
And there's tremendous amount of guilt that surrounds something like that for the survivors. And addiction is another one of those issues. My oldest son died of a heroin overdose, and we struggled with how to present that. And I'm a full disclosure kind of person. My wife felt that she didn't want him to be defined by how he died, and so I respected that. And what's ended up happening is that people who didn't know what the cause was jump to a conclusion. Where there are no facts, we tend to fill them in. So people think that he was either murdered, committed suicide, or something like that. And but come to we've reached a point where we're able to acknowledge what the cause was, because what has ended up happening is that I talk about it publicly. And I think that that lances the boil. For some reason, I'm able to talk about it, which gives other people permission, because the survivors, they didn't cause it, but they're collateral damage. And so grief is, as you know, it can be very isolating. When you're going through these intense feelings of loss, you feel like you're the only one who understands. And yet grief and loss are universal. Everyone has experienced grief and loss. And it doesn't necessarily even mean the loss of a loved one. It can be the loss of a pet or a job or a relationship or your health or your innocence or the loss of civility in civil and political discourse. All of those things can cause grief and pain and loss. And if we acknowledge that as part of our common humanity, again, I think that that's a way to build bridges and bring us together as opposed to keep us isolated.
yeah, guy, that's so wise. What you just said is so wise because it's absolutely true. And your loss is your loss. Your grief is your grief.
Right.
And that's something I've seen happen in our world is we can be quick to judge people's grief or compare grief. Somebody's grief
Oh
is
man.
worse than somebody's. None of that matters. Your grief is yours.
I learned an important lesson when Stephen died. My wife and I were in the car and the CD player was on. And this was pretty quick. It wasn't long after he died. And Cindy hit the button to advance the track to the next one. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "Every time I hear that song, it makes me cry." It was the same song that whenever I heard it, I would hit repeat because it made me cry. Same song, same emotional reaction, different way of dealing with it. And I think that's probably why she and I are still together after 47 years, because, we somehow realized that we were not going to survive if we compared our grief, do a comparative or competitive grieving situation. Saying to your partner, snap out of it, or you're not doing it right, that's not real helpful.
No.
We both knew we needed emotional support elsewhere, and yet we were supportive of each other. And that was a really important lesson to learn.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And there's some great places to go. There's some
Yes.
great resources out there
Oh,
for
man.
high grief, for grief.
Yes.
One thing that I discovered, my husband, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and 4 months later, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he passed away 6 weeks after that. I was in my
Oh,
40s, and
oh,
so
man.
very unexpected, very quick, very all of that. And it was shortly after that, actually, that I pretty much moved to Haiti for several years. And uh, what I found is service is the greatest healer of grief. And I've never heard anybody talk about that. But
No, I've never heard it said that way either.
it's so true. When you get out of yourself and you give to others,
Yep.
your grief gets healed quicker, I think, and in a different way.
That's fascinating. I'd never heard it put together that way, but obviously it worked with you.
Yeah, yeah, it really did.
And
Yeah.
I bet it found its way into your book too.
Maybe it's possible. It's certainly possible. But yeah, so it's interesting. And because I know too, like I'm losing a child, I can't imagine. I have not had that experience. I pray that I don't have that experience. I pray nobody ever has to go through that, because that is so, so hard.
It
And but I've also seen where people um feel like they're disrespecting the person they lost if they live again, if they're happy again,
right.
right?
Yeah, boy, yes, boy, is that true. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the opposite is true. I feel like the most honoring way is to live,
right.
to be happy, to laugh,
Yeah.
and show that, yeah, you love them, but you don't have a choice. You're not going to bring them
Life
back.
goes on, life goes on.
Exactly. And what would they want for you? Of course, they want you to live. And uh,
Exactly.
I celebrate them, celebrate life, celebrate
Yes.
the life that you have.
That's wise too. That's
Yeah.
wise too. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, interesting. But anyway, so then of course all of these experiences come into play when you write.
Yes. And writing is an act of love. We have something that we want to share. And I mean, why do we write? We write because we want to connect. And so, it's easy for a writer or a wannabe writer to get, very in their own head and compare themselves to other people and think, oh, I have no business doing this. But, if you just get better as a writer and be mindful of your craft and to be the best you can be, that's an act of love because you have a story to share. And once you get it out there, that's the connection that completes the circuit.
Yeah, I love it put that way. I've never heard it put that way. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your latest book, talk about,
Well, now we're getting back to politics then.
now we're getting back to politics. That's right.
Look, I write as a 20-something young woman. We can go there if you want. There's a 12-step program for it. Uh, and you write what you know. So I know journalism. And so I put her in that kind of a position. I covered the White House when Reagan was president. So for two of my books, she is a White House correspondent. And by the time book six comes along, and you don't have to read them in order, you can pick them up at any point along the way, and nothing will be spoiled. But by the time we get to Enemies Domestic, which is book number six in the series, um, Lark, my protagonist, is pregnant. The dad is dead. She's ambivalent about becoming a single mom, but abortion is a crime, and a dictator becomes president. So it could never happen, but I wanted to create a story that the title, Enemies Domestic, comes from the oath of office for government officials who take an oath to protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so Lark, on her first day as White House press secretary, gets a question from a reporter with an agenda who asks, "Are you or are you not planning to abort your unborn child?" Well, this is normally a personal, private decision, but she becomes thrust into the middle of this highly toxic and polarized political fishbowl. And so she's got to work this question out in real time in front of the world, literally the world. And so I wrote it when the abortion decision, the Roe v. Wade decision, was overturned. Uh, Abortion had been legal for 50 years, and then states had the right to make it criminal, and a lot of them have. And so I wanted to create a story that put Lark in a post-Roe era, but as a reporter, I've covered all sides of the issue. As an individual, I have been on all sides of the issue. And so, what I wanted to do was to create a story where no matter where you come down on the abortion issue, you'll feel that your position is fairly represented because it is a complex, emotional situation and it's nuanced. And so, I wanted to create a story with that as the backdrop as the story goes forward. And there's certainly a bigger issue in terms of, the presidency. And so all of that is played out as Lark is trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, which I don't know that there's a book written, John, that has more of a controversial beginning than that book because
Yeah,
holy
it's
cow.
yeah.
And then how can you put that book down?
Well,
You can't.
that was my intent.
It's very, very good, very well.
It's won 8 awards so far this year, and so I must be doing something right. You can't please everybody. I'm enough of a realist to know that. But um, interestingly, Cindy and I wrote this one pretty much together. I like to plan where I'm going with my books, but this one was different. This one was very much seat of the pants. Cindy and I came up with the idea. And the process was we had the idea. I'd go down here to write, blank screen. That's despair, right? What am I going to do? Get my characters talking to each other. That's like having little flashlights on your knuckles that throw enough light down the path so that you can see where you're going. You get done, get that chapter done. There's this feeling of elation and having made some sort of you know produced something that's worthy, take it up to Cindy. She would read it, and then we're back to despair again. And so that was the process. And she helped me get Lark out of a lot of tight squeezes. And that process worked so well that we're doing it again for book 7, but it's real early in the process. So there's not much to report on that one yet.
Wow, wow, very interesting. And so husband and wife, so you you're writing
Yeah.
and then your wife is going through it. Did you have any tense moments of, listen, honey, I'm the writer?
Oh, no, 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 because she's a reader and she's really smart and she's articulate. She doesn't consider herself a writer, but she really is a good one. She's a clear communicator. And oh yeah, we've had our, ups and downs. And, she definitely says what she means, and I do too. But in this case, I really respect and admire her insights. And so, you know, um, I would push back and ask questions and go, well, what about this? But, I don't remember any, she may remember this differently, but I don't remember any arguments during this particular creative
Yeah.
process.
Well, I would think I see a lot of bonuses to that actually,
Yeah.
because I this might be weird and I might be the only writer that does this, but I get a chapter done and I want someone to read it right now. Like I want to call somebody, hey, can I read this chapter to you? Like I want it, I want your feedback.
Sure.
I want to
That's
hear
normal.
it.
That's normal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you got that feedback right away.
I did, and that's daunting because, and one of the bits of advice that I give wannabe writers is I generally don't advise getting feedback from someone with whom you share a last name or a bed, because chances are that feedback is they're going to either break your spirit or they're going to be so complimentary that they're no help at all. And in fact, when I wrote my first book, the first draft, I showed to Cindy. This is almost 30 years ago now, and it was this 150,000 word mishmash. And she underlined one word, and she said, "You sure you want to use that word?" And she was right, and I changed the word. But what about the other 149,000 words? And she said at the time, she said, "I didn't know if you were any good, so I didn't want to break your spirit." But now, I trust her to really give me the honest feedback, knowing that she's not going to sugarcoat anything.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. You know, one thing I really love about you, John, there are many, by the way, but one thing I really love about you is you've taken all the experience of your life, the good and the bad, but especially the journalism and all the writing that you've done through all of that and reading that you've done and editing and all of that, and turned it into this whole new career. How does that feel? Like, what
Oh
do
man,
you have to say about that?
I mean, I feel like I'm humming on all cylinders. And it didn't always feel that way. But I think that the secret, and of course we figure it out too late, the secret I think is finding what you're good at and what you love. And when you put those two things together, you've got purpose and propulsion going forward. I'm good at being curious, talking to people, even people with whom I disagree. I'm good as a writer, and I'm not saying that to brag because I know there are plenty of writers who are way better than I am. But I'm adequate. I can put a sentence together and a story together and create a character that people remember when the book is over. So I can do
Okay,
that.
John's being very humble. John is a very good writer, but go on, go
Well,
ahead.
thank you. But I do know how to write, and I'm a good communicator, I think. And and I love doing that kind of stuff. I'm a connector. And so I do that with my stories and with my relationships. So I'm now at a point where I do teaching primarily to people who want to be writers, but I'm expanding that now to try to work with people who are struggling with grief and, finding outlets with, let's say, corporate wellness programs or bereavement organizations or military groups whose members are fighting PTSD. They may not, none of these people may consider themselves to be writers, but what I'm learning to do is inspire them to use writing, whether it's storytelling or journaling or poetry or, any number of creative outlets, to use that as a way to process the grief. And so, I think I've found my calling. It's not too late, but it is late. I'm living,
Yeah.
I'm living as if I've got another 25 years, but there are no guarantees.
Well, you just had all those years of training. That's
Yes. Oh, well
that's
said.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the way you're saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it's remarkable, and I agree with you. You find something you love. I think we go through life, and at different stages of life, it's all about the paycheck. You're feeding the family. You got
Yeah,
to make sure you can pay the mortgage. All of
right.
that. You might
All
love
of that.
what you're doing. You might not love what you're doing. But somewhere along the way, too, we can lose the curiosity. And I know curiosity is a big deal to
It's
you.
huge. It's huge. I think it's huge. And and I mean, think about it. 5-year-olds have it nailed. It's time to go to bed. Why? Because I said so. Why? And so it goes. That's curiosity, and that's, challenging authority too. So I'm all for that as well.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that too. But it is amazing how 5 years old we are curious. We have a wild imagination. We get
Yeah.
in trouble for daydreaming, right?
Yeah.
We get in trouble for using our imagination at times.
Yeah.
And so we kind of get away from that.
It gets
Well,
snuffed out of it. It gets
right.
snuffed out of it. I can't tell you how many writing students I've got who tell me that, their English teacher broke their spirit. They basically said, well, don't become a writer. You know,
Yeah. Don't ever say that to anybody.
oh
Anybody
my
out there,
God,
don't ever say that to
you
anybody.
want to fan that ember of creativity.
Yes, and there is the opposite of that too, right? Where you hear stories about people that their English teacher said you should be a writer, and some of the biggest writers out there
Right.
had somebody that encouraged them along the way. But
Encouragement is again, it doesn't cost you anything to
mhm.
find the good in someone, to find what they're good at and notice it because they may not see it.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah, I've heard, they say, what did you love to do when you were 10? Or what did you love to do, right?
Yep.
And then that's probably what you should be doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So you were writing or you love story.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I'm a slow learner though, because I think part of the problem was the way English was taught when I was growing up, and I don't think I had an appreciation for reading because they were throwing stuff at us that was way over my head and didn't seem relevant. I mean, I didn't really connect with fiction until probably college when I read John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath for an American history class, and it made the Dust Bowl of the 1930s come alive. And I mean, historical fiction, I mean, what he wrote was not historical fiction. It was pretty much present day because that was when he wrote it at that time. But it made history come alive for me. But writing historical fiction is hard to do, and it's not something I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It takes a special gift, I think. Certain people are terrific at it though, and incredible,
Yeah.
and it can be very interesting to read.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think most people had to read Grapes of Wrath at some point in their college career, high school career, or whatever it happened to be. But
Yep.
I'm with you. I did not like to read. My mom wanted me to be a reader so bad. She loved to read. She would devour books.
Wow.
I did not like to read, and I love to read now. But I don't know if it was because it was sort of forced on me, or
Yeah.
I'd rather play kickball. I'm not sure.
Sure.
One or the other, whatever it was.
So what made the difference? What got you interested in reading?
When I finally read a book, I think, I read Nancy Drew or
Yeah.
pretended to read Nancy Drew when I was a kid
Yeah.
because my mom would buy them for me. But I think just like you, when I finally actually read a book and it takes you to a whole different place, like you're no
Yes.
longer sitting on your couch, you're in this whole different world and you're with these people that you think are now your friends. And, you get away from the book and you go, do I really know that? Is that a real person? And is that a person that somebody wrote about in a novel? Like, who is that? Right?
And it's active. Television, they're in movies, great stories, but it's a passive experience. Writing or reading, you are engaged. You have to be engaged, to not only read the words, but then to allow your imagination to be stimulated. And so, you are in league with the writer to make that story come alive.
Yeah, so true. So well put. I love that. That's so true. So, yes. So, another thing I really like, John, is that you're a couple years older than I am, but we're both in the 70s doing whatever we were doing in the 70s. And I see people retire
Yeah.
and then die,
Yeah.
right? Or retire and then are depressed
Yeah.
because they lost purpose, they lost life,
Yep.
right?
Right. Well,
Because
in one of the sixth, one of the, there are the five stages of grief, but David Kessler, who used to work with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, he also lost a son, wrote a book called Finding Meaning, the sixth stage of grief. And I think that makes a lot of sense because, finding purpose and meaning, I think really should be the goal. Should be the goal all along, but we lose it along the way, and it's good that adversity can help us find that again.
right, right, right. And yeah, adversity can help us find it again.
Yeah.
I think too, when people look at retirement or look at, "Well, I'm going to get to this age, I'm going to have this much money in my 401k, whatever, this is where I'm going to be. And then I'm going to golf and I'm going to travel." And
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's okay for a little while, but then what are you going
Sure.
to
Well, traveling, I think there's a lot to be said for traveling,
do?
because I think that widens your horizon. Um, but and usually the really skillful travelers read a lot about where they're going and about the history and all that, and make it a point to connect with people, when they're in, a new place as opposed to just staying in their bubble.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love going to places and going where tourists never go and actually see what life is like in another place, another
Well,
country, another city. It's
yep,
much more exciting that way to me. But
absolutely.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Not that I, wouldn't go to the Coliseum because I did, but whatever. Some sites are great to go see. Some things are very interesting to go see. But getting off the beaten path, getting away from the tourist areas gives you a whole different perspective on
Yes.
wherever it is you are.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you're teaching writing. Oh my gosh, I want you to be my teacher because I bet you're the greatest writing teacher ever. You probably have people tell you that all the time. Did I lose you? I can't hear you. You're frozen. Hopefully you'll come back. Hello, hello, hello. Mm, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? I lost you for a minute.
I know you froze and I froze, so we're
Yeah,
back
I don't,
together.
whatever happened, but that's what editors are for. So it's all
That's right. They
yeah,
all come out in post-production, right?
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I was just saying that I love it that you teach. I'm sure that everybody tells you you are the greatest writing teacher
Oh, they totally do.
ever. I would guess they probably do.
Well, I get good feedback, but you can't please everybody.
Right. This is true. This is true. But I'm sure you're fabulous at it. And so how can people take a class from you? How can they reach out to you? What do you want people to do?
Best way to do that would be to go to my website, which is my name.com, and I'll spell it for you because it's this tricky Greek name. It's johndedakis.com, and I'll spell it John D as in dog E, D as in dog A, KIS as in Sam, johndedakis.com. You can go to my upcoming events page where a lot of the classes that I teach are online. I also go to writers' conferences and speak at different places around the country. So, one way or the other, you should be able to get at least a handle on what I do that way. Just about every page has a portal where you can send me an email. You can find out more about my books. You can find out about my public speaking. You can learn more about my editorial services. So my website is one-stop shopping.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so we covered a lot of things. And of course, all that's going to be in the show notes too. So if you didn't have paper and pencil and write down John's name or have it memorized, no problem. Just look at the show notes and you can get it. Uh, what is something that we haven't covered that you wish we would have talked about?
Whoa, you're very thorough. Uh, I don't think I can think of anything. I mean, you're very thorough. We talked about journalism, we talked about writing, we talked about grief, we talked about connecting with other people. We talked about the moment, cultivating the moment and being effective in it. Um, I got nothing unless you've got any other questions. I mean,
Okay, well, yeah. So this will be my last question then.
so you say.
Yeah, so I say exactly, exactly. Yeah, words. It's just words. It doesn't really matter. Uh, is there some piece of advice that you were given at some point in time that you hang on to, or some piece of advice that you love to give to people? What is that?
Two pieces of advice.
Okay.
One was when my sister died, and someone said, move toward the pain. And I didn't know what it meant at the time. But I've discovered that our society tends to anesthetize the pain. And so, as we've discussed in our conversation, moving toward the pain is the way to excavate it and find meaning in it. And so that was good advice. The other bit of advice is stop being so afraid. We spend a lot of time fearing the future. And fear, I actually teach a class on facing your writing fears. And I've discovered in looking at my own scaredy catness that, fear is a part of life and it's normal. I call it the fear continuum. There's recklessness. That's no fear at all. That can get you into a lot of trouble. There's caution, which we all should utilize because we need to assess, is this going to kill me, bankrupt me? Am I going to lose my health if I make this decision? There's cowardice. That's knowing what we should do and freezing. And then there's courage. And there's the common denominator between courage and cowardice is fear. That's the fulcrum. And the interesting thing I've discovered about becoming courageous is that you can't sit and wait to become courageous. You must face your fears and go forward anyway, despite the fear. It's sort of like the guys storming the beaches of Normandy in World War II. Were they afraid? They were terrified, but they went forward anyway. Fear in action. And so, what I suggest, the bit of advice I suggest is harness the fear and go forward anyway, because the byproduct is courage.
That's so good. That's so
Thank you.
good. John, thank you so much for this. I could talk
Thank
to you
you.
forever. I so appreciate it. This was so fun. This was
This was a lot of fun. You're a fascinating person. I think your book is going to be interesting, and I wish you well in this podcast because I think that the vision that you've got is so needed right now. So, onward and upward. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
No, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for your kind words. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Do look into John, get to his website, and buy his books. Send his books to other people. I'm telling you, you want a great read, read John's books. The most recent book will keep you on the edge of your seat. All of them do. Actually, I don't know why I said just the most recent, but buy them. And Amazon makes it so easy to send them. And what a lovely gift to receive in the mail. Somebody sends you a book, right? So if you got a friend, a cousin, a brother that you haven't seen in a while, send them a book. Send them one of John's books. They will appreciate it and enjoy it. I guarantee it. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. And I just want to say that I pray that until we see each other again, that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.